Leading the Catholic Church is no small feat. It requires faith, resilience, and sometimes an incredibly long life. Some popes have ruled well into their 80s and even their 90s. But who were the oldest popes in history? Stick around, because number one held the papacy until he was almost 94 years old. Let's dive in. We start our list with Pope Clement XII, who led the Church until the age of 87 years and 305 days. Born as Lorenzo Corsini, Clement XII became Pope in 1730 and is known for some of the most ambitious projects in Vatican history. One of his greatest achievements? The construction of Rome's famous Trevi Fountain. Despite his old age, Clement XII wasn't just sitting on a golden throne. He was making bold moves. He banned lotteries, fought corruption, and even clashed with European monarchs over church authority. But here's the catch. By his later years, he was completely blind. But Clement XII didn't let blindness stop him. Even without sight, he continued making crucial decisions, relying on advisors and sheer determination to govern the church. His papacy wasn't just about spiritual leadership, it was about power, politics, and resilience. One of his most intense battles was against the rising influence of Freemasonry in Europe. Clement XII became the first pope to issue a formal ban on Freemasons, condemning them for operating in secrecy and challenging church authority. His decree, known as In Eminenti Apostolatus, set the stage for centuries of conflict between the Catholic Church and Masonic organizations. On top of that, Clement XII aggressively defended the Church's financial stability, cracking down on corruption and overseeing economic reforms to ensure Rome's wealth remained intact. Though his later years were marked by illness and political strife, his legacy is still visible today. Every tourist who throws a coin into the Trevi Fountain is seeing part of his vision come to life. Next up is Pope Gregory XII, who led the Church during one of the most chaotic times in history, the Western Schism. What's that? Well, at one point, there were 3 popes claiming to be the true leader of the Catholic Church. Sounds like a medieval soap opera, right? Gregory XII took the papacy in 1406, a time when the Church wasn't just a religious institution, it was a battleground for political power. The Western Schism had thrown Europe into confusion, with multiple popes ruling at the same time, each backed by different kings and factions. Gregory ruled from Rome, but in Avignon, a rival pope claimed the throne. And just when you thought that was bad enough, a third pope emerged in Pisa, further dividing the Catholic world. For years, diplomatic efforts failed to resolve the crisis. Europe's rulers, bishops, and even everyday Catholics were torn between rival popes, unsure who to follow. Gregory XII, despite his old age, knew that something had to be done. Then came the Council of Constance, 1414 to 1418, the moment that would define Gregory's legacy. This was one of the most important church meetings in history, convened to end the schism once and for all. Gregory XII made a shocking decision. He agreed to resign in order to bring peace and unity back to the Catholic Church. At 88 years old, Gregory XII became the last pope to resign voluntarily until Pope Benedict XVI in 2013, more than 600 years later. His resignation paved the way for a single pope to lead the Church again, restoring order after nearly 40 years of division. While he faded into history after stepping down, his sacrifice ensured that the Catholic Church survived one of its greatest internal crises. Number 3 on our list is Pope Francis, the first pope from the Americas and the oldest living pope today. At 88 years old, he has already outlived many of his predecessors, yet he remains one of the most active and globally influential popes in modern history. From championing social justice to challenging long-standing church traditions, Pope Francis continues to make headlines around the world. But what makes Pope Francis truly unique? Unlike many of his predecessors, he has embraced radical reforms, advocating for climate action, economic equality, and interfaith dialogue. He has called for compassion toward marginalized communities, addressed controversial topics like LGBTQ+ rights and divorce in the Church, and pushed for transparency in Vatican finances. However, his leadership has not been without controversy. Some traditionalists within the Church see his progressive stance as too liberal, arguing that he is changing long-standing doctrines too quickly. Others praise him as a leader of the people, modernizing the Church to meet the challenges of the 21st century. Despite facing health struggles, including chronic knee pain that often requires him to use a wheelchair, Pope Francis has refused to slow down. He continues to travel extensively, meeting world leaders, addressing humanitarian crises, and calling for peace in war-torn regions. Even at 88, he shows no signs of stepping down. The big question remains: how much longer can he continue? With his unwavering dedication and willingness to adapt, will Pope Francis follow in the footsteps of Gregory XII and Benedict XVI and eventually resign? Or will he remain in office until his final days, like most popes before him? Only time will tell. At number 2, we have Pope Celestine III, who served until the astonishing age of 92. Now, let's set the scene. He was elected Pope in 1191, during a time when Europe was filled with knights, castles, and brutal power struggles. The Pope wasn't just a religious leader back then, he was a major political figure, controlling alliances and deciding the fate of kings and emperors. Celestine III found himself at the center of one of the most critical power struggles of the Middle Ages. One of his biggest challenges? Emperor Henry VI, the son of the legendary Frederick Barbarossa. Henry was one of the most ambitious rulers of his time, determined to strengthen his empire and bring Italy and the papacy under imperial control. But Celestine III wasn't one to be pushed around. Despite being in his 90s, Celestine III took a bold stand. He refused to submit to Henry VI's demands and only granted him a coronation under strict conditions. This set off years of tension between the papacy and the Holy Roman Empire. But Celestine wasn't just dealing with European politics, he was also focused on maintaining peace within the Church itself. But here's where things take a shocking turn. By the time Celestine III reached 92 years old, he had had enough. He wanted to resign. However, the cardinals refused to let him step down. Imagine being one of the most powerful men in the world, but being forced to keep working at the age of 92. In the end, Celestine III passed away, still holding the papal throne, never getting the peaceful retirement he desired. His story is a reminder that even in the highest positions of power, you don't always get to walk away. And at number 1, we have Pope Leo XIII, the longest-lived pope in history, reaching an incredible 93 years and 140 days. Serving from 1878 to 1903, his reign of 25 years was one of the most significant in modern papal history. But here's something even more remarkable. He was the first pope ever captured on film. But Pope Leo XIII wasn't just famous for his age. His papacy was one of innovation and reform. He led the Catholic Church into the 20th century, navigating the challenges of a rapidly changing world. He's best remembered for his groundbreaking encyclical Rerum Novarum, 1891, which addressed the rights of workers, social justice, and fair wages, making him a key figure in shaping Catholic social teaching. At a time when the Industrial Revolution was creating harsh conditions for workers, Leo XIII took a bold stance, calling for better wages, the right to unionize, and ethical treatment of employees. This was revolutionary for the Church, as it was one of the first times a pope directly addressed economic and social issues rather than just theological matters. But that wasn't all. Leo XIII was also known for his deep intellectualism. He expanded the Vatican archives, encouraged scientific and historical research, and even sought to improve relations between the Church and modern governments. Despite his frail health in his later years, he remained mentally sharp and continued to shape church policy well into his 90s. Even as he became physically weaker, Pope Leo XIII showed incredible determination and resilience. His last years were filled with efforts to modernize the Church, improve Vatican diplomacy, and continue spreading Catholic teachings worldwide. He was admired for his wisdom and longevity, often described as a living relic of history. On July 20th, 1903, Pope Leo XIII passed away, leaving behind a legacy that continues to influence the Church today. His record as the oldest and longest-lived pope in history still stands. He proved that age is not a barrier to leadership, it's a testament to endurance, wisdom, and faith. If you enjoyed this deep dive into history, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next episode. Let us know in the comments, who is your favorite pope and why? Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.